You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning. It's August the 17th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. We're live here at the Legacy420.com news desk and at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. Good morning, Glenn. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm doing absolutely great. I was out on the bike the first thing this morning.
All right. Because I remember last time we spoke last week, you hadn't gotten out in days because of the rain.
Yeah, we have spots here and there. I mean, it looks gray out there, but there's no rain, so it's fine with me for now.
Right, exactly.
And it looks the same in your area.
Yeah, it is. No rain in the forecast, though, but that's fine. I can't get sunburnt. Well, I have gotten sunburned on cloudy days, so fortunately.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm glad you got out. Had the wind blowing in your beard.
Yeah,
Oh, good. All right. Well, what do you say? We get started with today's stories.
Sounds great.
All right. We're gonna start. We're gonna get started with 5 Canadian cannabis stories that you probably won't find on Facebook anywhere, but you just never know. And to get that started it's a disturbing story, and that this comes to us from CTV News and says that kids are overdosing. Kids overdosing is a public health emergency, according to Canadian pediatricians say. Like, holy smokes, Glenn.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out in a minute. A new study says an alarming number of kids aged 12 and older have been treated for drug overdoses in Canada. The Canadian Pediatric Surveillance Program says stimulants are the most commonly reported cause of severe or life-threatening overdoses, followed by sedatives and opioids.
Stimulants. And sedatives and opioids. So obviously they're getting access to pills.
Yes. And I think that would be a lot easier. Everybody has some kind of pill.
Yeah, like I gotta think that pretty well every household's got pills in it. And obviously if this is a health emergency, then there's an awful lot going on that we probably haven't heard about. We quite often hear about the kids getting access to the cannabis, and
why haven't we heard
cannabis?
About it? Why haven't we been hearing about this on the news? I don't understand it.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously
there's more emergency, but we haven't even heard of it.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're helping bring attention to that. It says that fatal overdoses are the leading cause of death in children and teens between the ages of 10 and 18 in Western Canada. But it also says that the problem exists across the country, with pediatric specialists in all 10 provinces reporting treating overdoses.
BC Children's Hospital pediatrician Dr. Matthew Caruana says the issue is even more concerning because the survey didn't capture kids and teens who may have overdosed but didn't seek pediatric care. Okay. In a release, Caruana says there's a great need for prevention and intervention strategies for children and youth in the ongoing overdose crisis.
Yeah. They said they got their survey response from 1,000 pediatricians across the country.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Exactly. It's something that we just never hear about. It's just because it's been normalized.
Yeah, I guess so. It's like a beer, it's there and nobody notices it at all.
Yeah. Could be. Exactly. Okay, get us started on to our next story. And the headline on it says, Quebec has limited plans for new cannabis stores under retail monopoly, and this comes to us from MJ Biz Daily.
Nearly 5 years after recreational cannabis legalization, legal weed shops are as common as corner stores in most major Canadian cities. It is the biggest, in the biggest metropolis, Toronto. More than 400 cannabis retail licenses have been issued across the city's 6 boroughs.
In contrast, Canada's second biggest city is Montreal. It is home to only 21 legal cannabis outlets within the city limits, plus some stores in outlying suburbs. All are operated by the Quebec's government-owned recreational cannabis retail monopoly, Société Québécoise de Cannabis.
That's funny how they own everything.
It's government-owned.
Despite having only 98 stores across all of Quebec, the SQDC monopoly appears to have limited plans to open new outlets over the next several years. Because Canada's maturing cannabis market has shown a clear link between growing store numbers and increasing legal cannabis sales, Quebec's restricted retail expansion plans raise questions about how much further the regulated industry can grow in Canada's second most populated province.
SQDC's latest annual report revealed that sales plateaued at $602 million in the retailer's latest fiscal year, which ended on March the 25th, barely increasing over the previous year at a time when overall sales of legal cannabis in Canada were growing.
Probably because they're not expanding. People don't have access.
People don't have access.
Yeah. Other factors such as labor unrest, the lack of legal vape sales, and restriction on sales of cannabis edibles also play into Quebec's flatlining sales. Well, they're way behind everybody else. That's why.
They got like broccoli for cannabis edibles, or cauliflower or something like that. Wow. That's what they got. They got like 4 things. It's nowhere near what we have.
I wish we had a little sidebar on the story to tell us what they're offering.
Yeah.
They say factors, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Other factors such as labor unrest. Oh, sorry, I read that one. Yeah. No matter the cause, it's clear that Quebec punches well below its weight in terms of legal cannabis sales compared to other Canadian jurisdictions. You figured they'd see that and say, where's the tax from the sales?
Yeah. In May, Quebec sales of legal recreational cannabis was $52 million for an estimated total population of 8.8 million, outpaced by smaller provinces of Alberta that had 74 million sales for 4.7 million, and BC that had $64 million in sales for 5.4 million people. So there you go. Yeah, access, location.
That's what it is. In anything you're selling, you have to have access. Okay, Michael Timperio, executive chair of the board of Provincial Marijuana Industry Group, Association Québécoise de la Industrie du Cannabis, believes the province should have more retailers than the existing 98, and assumes new stores would benefit producers as sales would presumably increase. It's hard for me to say what would be the ideal number of stores, Timpino said. You let the market decide that.
Yeah, exactly. But he goes on to say that I believe, though, that if we had more stores, it would be better for accessibility by consumers. Bingo. For now, though, Tepperoni believes the SQDC has a bigger issue than the number of stores. An ongoing strike by workers at 24 SQDC locations is dragged on for well over a year, resulting in rotating store closures and reduced hours as the stores are staffed by managers.
That is more of a concern right now than opening more stores, Timpiero said. SQDC spokesperson Fabrice Greger noted in a statement that both parties have agreed on non-monetary issues, but salaries and the length of the collective agreement are still under negotiation after a year.
Yeah, really. Currently, there is no scheduled date for negotiation meeting. And they also said they aim to find a solution to welcome our colleagues back to work. A labor dispute with the SQDC workers represented by a different union was resolved back in 2022.
Meanwhile, the SQDC's largest strategic plan for 2024, or latest strategic plan for 2024 through 26, makes no mention of plans to open new stores. Although if it does say the retailer will continue to diversify our delivery and pickup services and look into ways of extending our presence across Quebec. That would be more stores.
Yeah.
The retailer told MJ Biz Daily that it doesn't have a target for the number of new stores that will open by 2026.
Well, you know, target is a plan. So if they don't have a target, they don't have a plan.
Yes, this is true.
Spokesperson Guigné subsequently added that the SQDC would consider opening new stores in a few market gaps over the next 3 years. Aside from that possibility, according to Guigné's statement, the retailer strongly believes the consumers can have proper access to legal cannabis products with our store network covering the territory of Quebec and different delivery services, including our 90-minute service. You think so?
Well, Quebec is a really, really big province. 98 stores, that doesn't even come close. In light of recent research showing the link between consumer proximity to legal cannabis stores and the increased odds of those consumers making a purchase from the legal market, Quebec's relatively small number of brick and mortar stores suggests that some would-be legal consumers aren't being captured by the legal market. Sure. We don't know what's behind the strategy in terms of where they're going to be going after those 98 stores, said the AQIC's Temperio, who raised the possibility that the SQDC might eventually open different kinds of stores, such as express outlets, in smaller markets.
Canadian cannabis market researcher Michael Armstrong, an associate business professor at Brock University in St. Catharines, believes Quebec is the province that needs more stores, even for basic public policy objectives, but not necessarily dramatically more stores.
Government retail monopolies such as Quebec's can have fewer stores than a private sector market and still have equivalent coverage and convenience, he observed. The FQDC's retail monopoly is highly profitable, reporting net income of $94.9 million and $70.3 million for its fiscal year ended in late March.
Yeah, the SQDC spokesperson wrote that the SQDC's plateauing sales are in part due to the ongoing labor dispute. I can see that, yeah. This stage is completely normal within the growth curve of any new business operating within a new industry. Although the cannabis market researcher Armstrong believes the strike plays into the SQDC's sales leveling off, he says, I'm sure that the plateauing of the store numbers is a big contributing to the plateauing of sales. Yeah.
It sounds to me like they're not opening more stores because they can't really staff them if they're going through a strike.
Yeah, but they're not blaming the strike for not opening the stores.
Yeah, this is true. Other factors also account for Quebec's low cannabis sales relative to the province's, particularly a political focus on cannabis-related health concerns. Quebec law prohibits sales of many popular forms of edible cannabis, including candies, chocolates, or anything that could be attractive to persons under 21 years of age.
Edibles currently for sale at the SQDC include unconventional options such as cannabis-infused beef jerky, baked beets, or apricots, or reishi mushroom bites.
Wow.
And you can't have more than 30% THC in your cannabis concentrates.
Can you imagine? Someone thought it was a good idea to sell these 4 items. Holy smokes. Wow.
I said to you at the beginning of the story that they only had a few items, and it was things like cauliflower or something, right?
I can't believe those 4 items they chose. Yeah. Everything in the world, and they chose that. Jesus Christ, man. Wow, I think this guy was on something much, much, much more powerful than marijuana when he got involved with this here. What's more, the SQDC has chosen not to sell cannabis vape pens and cartridges, a popular product category in the rest of Canada, with spokesperson Greger citing a 2018 recommendation from Quebec's Public Health Institute that expressed concern about the safety of vapes. Greger said the SQDC is fully aware and concerned by both the scale and importance of the problem caused by vaping habits among young people, and will be happy to be part of the solution when the Health Institute decides to change its stance on the matter in the future.
Well, let's hope it's sooner than later, because I don't know. Like, if you were looking forward to edibles, like, your choices aren't. Yeah.
You better like beets.
And like beets, apricots. Like, what did they go out and find the least liked items for people?
That's
like,
what they did. That's what they did.
But I have, just so you know, I have talked to some people who said that they thought that it was a good idea because it was healthy food.
Well, I have
And
no
not
problem
candy.
with those products existing. I have those
No,
problem with those
yeah.
products being the only products you can purchase, right? Like, I see gummies everywhere in this country, and
Yeah,
I never had a problem with it. If you're careful with them and don't leave them out for your little child to eat them, you're fine.
Yeah, exactly. All right, on to the next story. This one comes from StratCan. Headline says, Ontario projects $463 million in revenue from cannabis sales and taxes for 2023-2024.
The Ontario government expects to bring in $269 million from its portion of the federal cannabis excise duty for the 23-24 fiscal year. The provincial government also projects another $194 million in revenue from the Ontario Cannabis Store, out of the more than $204 billion in total revenue for the province projected for the current fiscal year. And go back and compare the figures from Quebec to the figures from Ontario.
Yeah.
It's astounding.
These figures show an increase from the $253 million in the province brought in from their portion of the federal cannabis taxes in 2022-23, $215 million in that year prior, and $106 million in the 2020-2021 fiscal year. This compares to $617 million the province projects to bring in from tax revenue from the sales of beer, wine, and spirits in the province, and $840 million from the tobacco taxes.
Wow. Ontario cannabis stores brought in $67 million in revenue in 2021, $186 million in 21-22, $225 million in 22-23. Unlike most provinces, Ontario, like most provinces, receives 75% of the $1 per gram excise tax charged at the federal level. Only Manitoba opted out of the initial tax sharing agreement, although the provincial government is currently in talks with the federal government to take part in that.
Earlier this year, the Ontario Cannabis Store announced it would lower its margins and move to a fixed price model. The change comes as part of the commitment to improving process transparency in its 2022-25 business plan, which includes a review of the OCS pricing structure. With this new change, the OCS projects that margin reductions will contribute approximately $35 million to the marketplace in 2023-24.
And Ontario sold more than 63 million grams of legal cannabis in the first 3 months of 2022, representing over $405 million in sales. This data is from the most recent financial reports from the OCS since it stopped issuing quarterly reports. The next report is expected later this year. Ontario sold more than 1.5 billion of cannabis in the fiscal year 2021. 400
quarters. Yeah, those are
all
all
by
the quarters.
quarter.
Yeah. So there you go. Lots of cannabis being sold.
Yeah, and
Lots
there's
of
a
money
whole
being
big chart here.
lots of money being made for the government. There's no doubt about that.
It's astounding the difference between Quebec and Ontario.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Just in the tax dollars brought in, incredible.
Yeah, huge. All right. We're going to switch things up. You get the headline. I get the story.
Cannabis company Canopy Growth to sell Hershey Drive facility in Ontario for $53 million.
That's right. Canopy Growth will sell its Hershey Drive facility in Smith Falls for $53 million. The cannabis company said on Thursday, just over a week after reiterating going concerns doubt. Founded in 2023, the company later purchased in 2017 to set up the largest indoor cannabis production facility in Canada at the time. The facility will be sold to Hershey Canada Inc. Look at that. It's going back to its original owners.
Wow.
Yeah, because that's, it was a Hershey building. So now
Yeah.
it's going back to the chocolate manufacturer. Canopy Growth in July signed agreements with lenders to reduce the debt by $437 million over the next 6 months, weeks after the Canadian firm raised doubts about its ability to continue as a going concern. Upon the completion of the latest transaction, Canopy will have sold a total of 7 properties for about $155 million since April 1st, they said in a statement.
I wish they would tell us what they paid for those properties. I would like to know how much they're losing selling these properties. I really would, because Canopy Growth is a company that we've heard of for a long time now.
Long time. Yeah. Oh yeah, they have been. There has been some stories that do mention them by name or by the they've launched. It just depends if it's made available, right?
So. Yeah.
All right, on to the next story. Headline on it from StratCan says some Winnipeg cannabis retailers concerned with province allowing sales in gas stations. Glenn, have you ever heard about that? We're selling cannabis in gas stations.
In Florida, I know is either approved bill or it's a bill before them right now to do the same thing in gas stations. That's the only place I've heard of it so far.
I'm not against it. It's just I had never heard. So here we go.
It's unusual. Some retailers in Winnipeg say they are frustrated by the province issuing a retail cannabis license to a gas station convenience store, something they worry could be a new trend. The province maintains that such licenses, the Retail Cannabis Controlled Access Store license, have been available since 2018. With the first issued in December 2020, 8 such locations are now licensed.
Melanie Bekovich, the owner of Mystic Cannabis in Winnipeg, says she only heard about a new cannabis C-store in Winnipeg Beach after a friend recently visited the store for gas and overheard someone buying pre-rolls at the gas station counter. Although she says that she's aware of other C-stores in Manitoba that hold a store within a store, retail cannabis space, the ability for a convenience store owner to sell cannabis struck her as out of line with the province's own rules and mandate.
I'm shocked by it, says Bekovich. I can understand in the small rural communities, but there should be some controls, especially if they're saying they're going to keep it out of the hands of youth, but then they are directly exposing youth to the transaction. We're also required to make a significantly bigger investment, she added. I'm a bit confused by what is happening in the province, of course.
Lisa Hansen, a communication analyst with the Liquor, Gaming, and Cannabis Authority of Manitoba, the regulatory agency that licenses the cannabis stores in the province, says all licensed cannabis retailers, regardless of the license type, cannot sell cannabis to anyone younger than 19 years of age, and their staff must ask customers who appear young for ID to verify their age. All staff who sell cannabis and store managers must successfully complete the LGCA's Smart Choices Cannabis Retail Certification training after starting work in a store. This training focuses on legal and safety obligations such as checking ID and not selling to minors or intoxicated people.
Sharon Clark, the manager of Big Bud's Cannabis Sales Limited, also in Winnipeg, says the government is contradicting their own rules when it comes to protecting kids, because there are no controls in place to prevent young people from seeing and hearing transactions involving cannabis, something not allowed in standard retail cannabis stores. And they're 100% right on that.
Oh, right. I mean, big time. Like, holy smokes.
Yeah. I can't, how much money they've had to spend to set up these stores, I'd be pissed off too. They are knowingly putting youth into a situation where they are going to be watching cannabis transactions taking place. And I don't have a problem with youth watching cannabis transactions.
Either do I.
I have a problem with youth being protected from seeing this as if it's a bad thing.
Hey, we serve adults alcohol at the table at the restaurant with the kids sitting there. So while the parent consumes it.
Yeah. This is in direct contravention of their own guidelines and rules. That is inherently wrong because part of the mandate is to protect youth. And now they're directly exposing youth by actively pursuing this licensing tier.
Another double standard, according to Clark, is that the cost requirement for controlled access stores is much less than for stores like hers, which she says can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars meeting strict provincial security standards. They don't need to make a significant investment that we did and other stores did. They just need a locking drawer and a safe place for the cannabis.
StratCan reached out to DMO Interlake C-Store in Winnipeg for comment, but did not hear back when it was published.
All right, there you go. Yeah,
I think they're right. If you owned a store and you spent all that money and then they did this down the street, I'd be so pissed.
Oh, for sure. Like I see them having the different store types that they have, but there's
the playing field has to be equal.
Yeah, it has to be the same. Like, we allow kids to go in the liquor store. We don't allow kids to go into a cannabis store. They don't allow kids to go into a cannabis store, but they allow kids to go into, like here in Ontario, we have places where they have a convenience store and they sell alcohol, but they're also separated, and that's because there's not an LCBO in the area, right?
Yeah.
But when
I lived there, I remembered a few of those. Stores.
But this sounds like people can just go to the regular counter where you go up to pay for your gas and you can ask for pre-rolls at the same counter versus being a separate location.
Yeah, and even if it's another counter right there, there's no blocking it. There's no, you know what I mean? It's a wide open store. So the kids can watch that, but they can't watch a cannabis. Like, you can't have no guards. I mean, the windows are fucking papered over and shit. Like you're in prison, you have to go into prison to get your cannabis. And now you can just walk into the gas station.
Exactly. And if you can hear that helicopter going over me or not, you got a helicopter nearby. No?
Can't hear it from here.
Okay. All right. Good to know. It's break time. Time for you and I to medicate. Glenn, I got to finish that doob I had before the show started. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Let's share Pace everywhere. That way it can help create peace. People everywhere advocating cannabis education.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Pace Radio is the people advocating cannabis education radio network.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net. We're back for a medication session, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 5 more stories, Glenn. I think we'll get them in. I think we'll get them all in today. All right. We'll get started with the one from the marijuana moment. States with legal medical marijuana see significant and sizable reductions in health insurance premiums, according to a study.
A new study in the International Journal of Drug Policy found that states with legal medical cannabis enjoyed significant reductions in health insurance premiums compared to states where cannabis remained completely illegal. Analyzing a decade's worth of private health insurance data from the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, researchers determined that in the years following a state's implementation of a medical cannabis law, premiums dropped dramatically.
Nice. While reductions were modest immediately following implementation, the study found that by 7 years afterwards, annual premiums had fallen $1,663 compared to states in the control group. Similar reductions were seen after 8 years of $1,542 and 9 years at $1,626, indicating that the decline was fairly stable over time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Although the effect does not begin until 7 years post-medical cannabis law implementation, the authors conclude, there is a significant and sizable reduction in health insurance premiums in states that legalize medical cannabis. Due to the nature of insurance pooling and commonly the community rating, they added, these savings are appreciated by cannabis users and non-users alike.
Oh, yeah. As the study's author points, findings undermine concerns that legalization will risk increasing healthcare costs. Initially, concerns about medical cannabis legalization leading to increases in medical care costs, which would be reflected in higher insurance premiums, appear to be unfounded, they wrote. Researchers were specifically looking at individual private health plans rather than employee-sponsored insurance plans or Medicare. The study notes that the health insurance spending in the U.S. accounts for between 16 and 34% of the average household budget.
Wow. So
yeah.
These guys are saving like over $200 a month, $225 every month in these states. That's incredible. Which means they're healthier. There's less claims, so they put the premiums down. Wow, that's awesome. In an attempt to control for other variables, authors focus on states where only medical cannabis was legal, excluding from the analysis states where adult use legalization was already in effect. States in the control group, meanwhile, included those without medical cannabis or those that had passed but had not yet implemented such a policy. Authorities acknowledge that there appeared to be a difference in premium reductions based on how early a state implemented its medical cannabis law, though more investigation is needed. For early, mid, or late adopting states, they wrote, there seems to be a small increase in premium in the second full year after enactment. However, early moving states continue to see a decline in premiums for years 3 through 9, whereas mid-adopting states see an annual impact on premiums after year 3. Wow.
Authors of the research paper were Amanda C. Cook, an economics professor at Bowling Green State University, E. Tice Sermons, a professor at Illinois State University's Department of Finance, Insurance, and Law, and Eastern Michigan University economics professor Amanda Stipe. The new paper adds to a governing body of research identifying the potential public health benefits associated with ending prohibition. A number of studies, for example, have found that states with medical marijuana have significantly lower rates of prescribed opioids. Earlier this year, a report found that adult use legalization was similarly associated with reductions in opioid demand.
In March, a separate study determined that states with legal medical cannabis had lower opioid payments to doctors. Another indication patients are using cannabis as an alternative to prescription drugs. On the individual level, a recent study in the International Journal of Drug Policy found that cannabis significantly reduced opioid cravings for people using opioids without a prescription, suggesting that expanding access to legal cannabis could provide more people with a safer substitute.
A study published in January by the American Medical Association, meanwhile, found that roughly 1 in 3 chronic pain patients reported using cannabis as a treatment option, and most of that group has used cannabis as a substitute for other pain medications, including opioids. A separate AMA study found an association between state-level medical cannabis legalization and significant decreases in opioid prescriptions and use among certain cancer patients. Like, Glenn, this article is just giving all the reasons why medical cannabis should be expanded worldwide completely. Like, holy smoke.
It is, because I remember, maybe a couple decades ago, you would never read something like this because they wouldn't be allowed to even post. A study published in September found that giving people legal access to medical cannabis can help patients reduce or stop use of opioid painkillers without compromising their quality of life. The same month, another study found that the pharmaceutical industry takes a serious economic hit after states legalize cannabis, with an average market loss of nearly $10 billion for drug makers per each legalization event. $10 billion to the pharmacy industry. That's not there all of a sudden after legalization.
Wow. That's
very, very positive article, that one.
Very, very, very positive. That is, it's
all the stuff we've been reading about for a long time, all wrapped up into one. And it's just really good.
Yes. Like, it's just all those studies, all that information, those are things that patients and people have been talking about for years. And now the studies are done. People, it's not just people talking about it. They have the research. They can show that all these benefits, dropping prescription rates, reducing opioids,
I also think that even people that are in politics that are anti-cannabis, they see the writing on the wall and they see the figures. More money for the states, less opioid dependence. I mean, these are all really, really
lives,
good things.
Lives saved. What can be more important?
Yeah, love that article.
Yeah. Very good one. I'm going to keep that one handy. All right, on to our next story. This one also comes to us from the Marijuana Moment. This is marijuana legalization in Maryland is pushing one city's mayor out of the hemp business.
We went one way. We got to go the opposite way now. I'm trying to get rid of this pop-up. Here we go. The mayor of Fredericksburg said Maryland's legalization of cannabis is forcing her and her husband to close their business and sell their Eastern Shore hemp farm. Kimberly Abner, her husband Ken, and her brother-in-law have run a small hemp business making gummy and vape products for the last 3 years. The bill that legalized adult-use recreational cannabis is pushing them out of the market, she said.
I'm the face of one of the businesses that you just put out of business. I have a Maryland hemp farm, said Abner, directing her comments to the House Economics Managers Chair, Del Wilson, during a cannabis symposium sponsored by the Maryland Municipal League. She says, I have a business that sells federally legal hemp products, and my stores are now calling me to take the product back out of their stores because of this bill.
Abner and her husband originally wanted to enter the state's medical cannabis industry, but were unable to obtain one of the coveted licenses. Since we didn't get a license, we went to the hemp products because we could get into that market and we can legally sell it and legally grow it in the state of Maryland, said Abner in an interview.
And the small business called Cannabis has been selling Delta 8 and Delta 9 gummies and vape products to smoke shops and stores on the Eastern Shore for about 3 years. They also sell a line of tinctures and topical lotions and creams. Hemp, as with cannabis, contains more than 100 different cannabinoids, including some. I don't know of anybody who gets stoned off of hemp.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
But they say that they are saying that there is, but yeah, no.
I've never heard of anybody getting high off hemp. So I'm
let's maybe phrase that a little bit. Hemp, as we know it, as its own product, not something that has been synthesized or changed in any way.
Yes. Delta 9, the primary intoxicant in cannabis, is also found in hemp. Products containing this substance have been legal in Maryland if the level was lower than 0.3%. Delta 8, another cannabinoid, can also have intoxicating effects, according to the Federal Drug Administration. And I'd like to know how much of that is in there.
Yeah, and it's not a natural thing as far as I'm concerned. The hemp products were not subjected to the regulations and requirements imposed on cannabis until 2023. This year, the Abner's Farms is barren.
We're having to sell our farm, said Abner. We're not growing this year, basically because they're putting Maryland hemp farmers out of business. Wilson also lead sponsor for 2023 legislation that allowed for the first legal recreational cannabis sales this summer. Since July, the state has recorded nearly $90 million in sales. The state levies a 9% tax on those sales.
The cannabis legalization bill was opposed by the state's hemp industry, which filed a lawsuit last month to overturn portions of the law that are causing some, like Abner, to go out of business. Abner is not a named party in the lawsuit, though her business is a member of the association that is one of the plaintiffs.
She said the state is unfairly targeting her business, even as it sells federally legal product. The word federally legal is very loosely worded here, Wilson said. You're right. At this point, the feds haven't made it illegal, but as a state, we do have the right to make sure that our constituents are safe. And if none of this has been tested, then we have a right to make sure that whatever people consume and put into their bodies is tested. And we have a right to set the level of what we consider an intoxicant and what we don't. But as I'm sure you're aware, that's what the lawsuit will sort out.
Abner said her products are tested and said that she has reports to prove it. The new law also set new conditions for the state hemp industry. A 5-year-old farming bill legalized the production of hemp, a cannabis plant with low levels of THC.
And New Maryland has lower the amount of THC that could be present in hemp products below federal standards. Hemp growers who wish to continue to sell in Maryland would be required to get a cannabis grower or processor license. That's absolute stupidity.
Yeah. A first round of licenses aimed at increasing the number of minorities in the industry is expected to be awarded by the end of the year. In the meantime, agents from the state's Alcohol, Tobacco, and Cannabis Commission are visiting stores and ordering products off the shelves.
So we have 2 officers that deal with those individuals with licenses and those who don't have licenses to make sure we get rid of some of these goofy smoke shops selling CBD, which is just, fake weed. You know that this is Delta 8 and Delta 6 and Delta 9 are, said Wilson. We wanted to make sure that whatever our citizens consume was safe, and if it was tested and if it was regulated. Sounds like he just doesn't give a shit about it at all. Oh, sorry for the language.
All right, on to our next story. And this one's coming to us. I'm not sure exactly, but I can tell you the headline on it says Vermont's cannabis industry looks ahead after a strong first year.
Here we go. Burlington, Vermont. Cannabis is a budding industry in the Green Mountain State, bringing it just under $10 million in new revenue to the state so far. Nearly a year in, there are 59 dispensaries in the state and more than 500 other businesses ranging from cultivators, testing labs, manufacturers, and wholesalers.
Now, Matthew Racenet, who owns Northeast Cannabis, he says some of our best-selling items are low-dosage topical creams, things like that. You wouldn't think, as a recreational facility, that would be something you would sell out of. Well, maybe if there's no access to medical use products, maybe that's why. But
and the hemp farmers are getting pushed out of business. So.
Yeah. Northeast Cannabis has been open since December, and owners Matthew and Alia Racenet say they've been busy.
The most often comment we get is, I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime, says Racenet. As the market evolves, so do the products. The duo says they sold 200 different strains and 35 different vendors.
About 90 minutes north, cultivators like Family Tree Cannabis say feedback from the community has shaped their role. We're also getting an opportunity to listen and hear what people want. We're filling niches now with products we didn't necessarily think we were going to be our bread and butter coming in, according to co-owner Ben Lanza.
And they've been in business since day one, meaning that they've been paying expenses, taxes, and fees, and have missed out on federal tax breaks. We pay far more to operate our business in banking fees, license fees, taxes than any other industry. So it can be hard to stay competitive, said co-owner Jane Lanza.
Retailers echo the costly concern that will be in place as long as cannabis remains illegal on the federal level. As soon as we get access to the banking system, as soon as we can get access to those tax breaks that other businesses get to have, playing by all the same rules that we're playing by right now, it would be nice, says Racenet.
I wonder if everybody else has a special 9% tax on them.
Yeah, exactly.
Hundreds of others are in the same boat, said Cannabis Control Board, says the market remains healthy. Some 77% of the 500 licensees are cultivators who are growing unique products, such as 59 retailers, nearly 30% are in Montpelier, Waterbury, or Burlington. And James Pepper with the Cannabis Control Board says there is no provision to stop new retailers in the same area.
Yeah, he says, despite the fact that this is a high-risk industry and people are operating without some of the more traditional safety nets like unemployment insurance or bankruptcy protection, you have to let the market play out. The first person in isn't necessarily the best. Pepper says towns do have the authority to zone storefronts and could avoid overly distant retail locations if they choose. Unlike alcohol stores, the CCB does not have the authority to require economic analysis of how this retail store would survive.
Retail stores are in 30 towns in the States, so there are swaths of so-called cannabis deserts where the retail has not yet been approved in town. Pepper also says, looking forward to the future, they're assessing whether the industry has hit a balance of supply and demand, as well as looking at other states to see what Vermont can do to advance the market, to be caught up, or to even lead the way.
Well, I think towns like that opt out, no matter what country they're in, need to look at some of that state information we talked about there on all those reductions because of cannabis.
You know what I can guarantee you too? They opt out of it, but they're going to be asking for some tax money from it.
Yeah.
I'd put money on that bet. I know almost all of them are going to ask for some of this money, but they're not allowing any sales in their area. So.
Yes, exactly. I've seen that. Yeah. All right. On to our next story. This is a good story. Psychedelic therapy as employment employee health benefit is becoming possible. And the first results are in. It's coming to us from the Psychedelic Spotlight.
And no fewer than 50 companies have shown interest in offering psychedelic therapy to their employees through healthcare plan startup Enthea. The North American lifestyle is not for everyone. Working extensively long hours in order to climb up the corporate ladder while struggling to stay awake during incredibly long commute times and praying not to lose your nerve during rush hour can be a life draining as it is. For those wrestling with mental health disorders, this constant routine can only make things worse and have a detrimental impact on life-work balance, job performance and productivity, communication with coworkers, and daily functioning.
Approximately 19% of the U.S. workers rate their mental health as poor or as fair, and this segment reports about 4 times more unplanned absences caused by poor mental health conditions compared to workers reporting good, very good, or excellent mental health. Some employers offer the traditional health benefits covering psychiatric and counseling services, telehealth, wellness programs, and therapeutic interventions. However, these options prove to be ineffective for those struggling with severe affective disorders such as treatment-resistant depression, PTSD, and major depression disorder, to name a few. In accordance to a study published by the NIH, evidence that antidepressants are more effective in more severe conditions is not strong, and data on long-term outcome of depression and suicide do not provide convincing evidence of benefit.
On the other hand, some non-traditional treatments such as psychedelic-assisted therapy are not covered by employers, even though studies have consistently been providing evidence that psychedelics are promising treatments for multiple severe mental health conditions, including anxiety, treatment-resistant depression, addiction, and post-traumatic stress disorder, without the adverse reactions that conventional medications can cause. Some studies have found that a single 25 milligram dose of psilocybin paired with the psychological support has led to a 57% sustained remission of depression and a 64% robust clinical response. Additionally, I just lost. Hold on a second here.
Did you lose it?
Lost my spot on the hair. Additionally, psychedelics have the potential to foster neuroplasticity in the brain, facilitating enhanced connectivity among various brain regions. This in turn leads to a profound alteration in consciousness, perception, as well as introspection and personal insight.
Although the potential of psychedelic medicines to treat psychiatric disorders is encouraging, traditional health insurance providers are unlikely to offer coverage for these treatments as part of the employer-sponsored healthcare plans until they are approved by the FDA in most cases. As a result, the cost of these types of treatments, even if some of them are becoming legal options in certain states, such as Oregon, are presenting barriers to access for most people. But it isn't all doom and gloom. Some employers are beginning to change their perspectives towards psychedelic-assisted therapy and are finding ways to include legal options in their healthcare plans. Enthea, a startup third-party administrator of health insurance plans offering psychedelic healthcare as a workplace benefit, told Fast Company that about 50 firms have shown interest in adding this option to the employee's health plan.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
Such is the case of Dr. Bronner's in 2022, Enthea partnered with Natural Soap brand, making the company first employer to add ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, which is referred, or short form is KAT, to its existing health insurance plans. The health benefits included ketamine sessions and counseling service focused on treating mental health conditions. And Enthea also plans on adding MDMA-assisted therapy and psilocybin-assisted therapy once they become approved by the FDA. MDMA for the treatment of PTSD may be approved by the end of this year, while psilocybin-assisted therapy still needs the completion of its largest phase 3 clinical trial. for treatment-resistant depression, expected to be completed by 2025. That's a long way away.
It sure is. And just so you know, I'm looking at the time there, and I'm going to cut this story short so that we can get to our last story of the day. But it's good to see that psychedelics are starting to be covered by companies. You know, it takes one to get the ball going, right?
Yep.
And now they got 50 on the go. So, all right, last story of the day. Headline from ABC News: Germany's cabinet approves a plan to liberalize rules on cannabis possession and sale. Another country, Glenn. Another country.
Germany's plan has approved a plan to liberalize rules on cannabis, setting the scene for the European Union's most populous nation to decriminalize possession of limited amounts and allow members of cannabis clubs to buy the substance for recreation. And this is from Berlin. Germany's cabinet on Wednesday approved the plan.
Go down the next slide.
Yeah, okay. The legislation is billed as the first step in two-part plan and still needs approval by Parliament. But the government's approval is a stride for a prominent reform project of Chancellor Olaf Scholz's socially liberal coalition, though significantly short of its original ambitions.
Okay, we're just going to cover the next two paragraphs. The bill, which the government hopes will take effect at the end of this year, foresees legalization possession of up to 25 grams of cannabis for recreational purposes and allowing individuals to grow up to 3 plants of their own. German residents who are 18 and older would be allowed to join non-profit cannabis clubs with a maximum of 500 members each. The clubs would be allowed to grow cannabis for members for personal consumption. But I like to continue reading that, Glenn, but I see that we are out of time, buddy.
Yeah. The 25 grams baffles me.
Yeah, it's like here in Canada, it's 30 for an ounce instead of 28. So, yeah. All right. Anything you want to say quickly?
Peace.
All right. Bye, all, from the Legacy420.com news desk. That's the Pace News Report for August the 17th. Thanks to our budget, the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, Legacy420, Limestone, hydroponics.ca. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate. And I got to find that button. There we go.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partners 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.